Last week of December. You take the calendar down off the wall, 12 months and you can't account for most of it. January was 3 deadlines and a cold. After that, a blur. Be honest, where did this year actually go? A 6-year-old never loses a year. To them, one summer afternoon is a whole story. A scraped knee is a chapter. A beetle found in the grass is a chapter. For a child, a year lasts a year. For you, it used to. You're not imagining it. The earth still turns at the same speed. The sun still rises on the same schedule. Nothing outside you sped up. The acceleration is happening inside your skull, and science can now put a number on it. By 60, your brain records roughly 30% fewer moments per second of life than it did at 25. The clock didn't change. Your film did. Over the next 10 minutes, 5 layers of why, from a Paris philosopher in 1877 to a study published 4 months ago. By the end, you'll know how to slow it back down. It starts in 1877. A philosopher in Paris, Paul Janet, proposed something almost too simple. The reason a year feels shorter at 50 than at 5, he said, isn't psychology, it's arithmetic. At 5, a year is 1/5 of everything you've ever lived, 20%. At 50, that same year is 1/50th, 2%. Identical clock time measured against 10 times more life. Plot Janet's law honestly, and something disturbing falls out. The subjective halfway point of an 80-year life isn't at 40, it's at 10. Half of how long your life will ever feel was already over before you left primary school. For most people, that's the first time the math gets frightening. It's also, it turns out, slightly wrong. In 1975, an engineer named Robert Lemlich published a correction in perceptual and motor skills. Janet's curve, he argued, was too steep. Time doesn't accelerate that violently. Lemlich proposed that subjective time scales not with 1 over age, but with 1 over the square root of age. A gentler curve, the same math the ear uses for loudness and the eye uses for brightness. His prediction was specific. An 80-year-old comparing now to age 20 should feel time running about twice as fast. He tested it. The median answer was exactly 2. But math isn't a mechanism. It draws the curve without saying why. Why would a brain weigh a single year against the whole of a life? In 2019, a Duke professor named Adrian Bejan offered a physical answer. Bejan studies one principle of physics, the constructal law, the same rule that grows river deltas, blood vessels, and the branches of a tree. Networks that get bigger flow slower at their edges. A child's brain is small. Its wiring is short. A signal crosses from eye to mind in almost no time. So a child, Bejan argued, takes many mental snapshots per second of being alive. And you can see it from outside the skull. Watch a newborn's eyes. They jump 3 times a second, sometimes more. Every jump is a separate look, a separate frame. An adult brain is large. The paths are longer. Some have begun to wear out. The same second now holds fewer frames. Bejan's analogy is unkind but accurate. As a child, you filmed life at high frame rate. As an adult, the camera was quietly re-encoded to a lower one. The world didn't speed up. You were compressed. There's another layer beneath the camera. In 1933, a Harvard psychologist named Hudson Hoagland sat at home beside his wife, who was burning with fever. He asked her to count seconds in her head. She counted faster than the clock. He cooled her down, she slowed. Hoagland did the math. The internal clock, he decided, was a chemical reaction. He pinned its activation energy near 24 kilocalories per mole, ordinary enzyme chemistry. The metronome inside your head runs on metabolism. Body temperature drifts down with age. Metabolic rate drops further. A 2025 replication using morning and evening chronotypes confirmed Hoagland's result. Cooler chemistry, slower clock. And when your inner clock runs slow, the outer world seems to race. There's no mystery in it. The reference is drifting. The clearest physical evidence is a brain wave, the alpha rhythm. 8 to 13 oscillations a second, mostly at the back of the head, mostly when the eyes are open, watching the world. Every person has a peak, their peak alpha frequency, their personal tempo. In 2023, a study of 346 people, ages 6 to 76, mapped that tempo across a whole life. At 6 months, 6.1 Hz. At 5 years, 8.4. At 28 years and 1 month, the peak, 10.28. After 60, below 9. The alpha rhythm matters because each cycle is one window of perception, one snapshot. The faster the rhythm, the more snapshots per second of the world. A 28-year-old's brain catches about 10 distinct moments a second. A 65-year-old's catches 9. One fewer moment every second for the rest of your life. This is the number you can almost feel. Same room, same chair, same hour, but the resolution it registers at has dropped a tenth. The afternoon isn't shorter, it records thinner, and what records thin remembers short. There's chemistry too. Dopamine, the molecule we file under reward, also runs the brain's longer clock, the one that measures seconds to minutes. One dopamine receptor, the D2, falls by about 10% every decade of adult life. Fewer catchers in the field, less signal caught. For years, that was the whole story. Less dopamine, slower clock. Then in 2024, a careful experiment in mice, using light to switch neurons on and off, rewrote it. What sets perceived time, it turned out, isn't the dopamine level. It's the slope, how fast the signal climbs, not how high it reaches. With age, the slope flattens. The clock dilutes. All of that was about the present moment. But when we say time flies, we're rarely describing the present. We're describing what just vanished. Last month, the entire spring. In 1969, a Berkeley psychologist named Robert Ornstein proposed the storage size hypothesis. The remembered length of a stretch of time, he wrote, is proportional to the new information stored inside it. A child encodes everything as new. A new bug, a new smell, a new route home. Storage is dense. Remembered, the period feels long. An adult on a familiar Tuesday runs on autopilot. Almost none of it is logged as new. Storage is sparse. Remembered, the period is simply gone. The brain isn't lying. It genuinely has nothing to file. There was a Tuesday, it was Tuesday-shaped. It's gone. What no one had measured precisely, until now, was which kind of memory matters most. Detail, vividness, sheer number. In 2026, a paper finally pulled them apart. They had people describe a real stretch of their own life. They scored its detail. They scored its order, did the sequence hold? And they counted distinct sub-events, how many separate things happened. Detail did nothing. Order did almost nothing. Only the count of sub-events mattered, and it mattered enormously. By a wide margin, the strongest predictor of how long a period felt. On average, each extra sub-event added 11 to 12 seconds to the remembered duration, not the kind of moments, the number of them. A child's day is a list of 40 things. An adult's day is one thing called Tuesday. The same 24 hours, and the Tuesday is shorter the moment it ends. And there's one final layer, the least intuitive, the one the brain installs on purpose. As the senses grow noisier with age, the brain leans harder on a prior, a pre-written guess about how a day usually feels. Statisticians call it a Bayesian Prior. The brain uses it to paper over the noise. Normally that's a gift, it lets us function. But aimed at time, it turns cruel. Every new day is partly assumed to match the old ones. The differences get smoothed away. You stop noticing one day from the next. The afternoons regress to the mean, and the mean is fast. So, paradoxically, the better your brain gets at predicting time, the less of it you actually live. There is, at last, a floor, the hardware itself. The eye can only resolve a flicker up to a certain rate before it blurs into steady light. That rate is called critical flicker fusion. In a 2025 paper, young adults averaged 45 to 50 hertz. People over 60, 30 to 35. The eye's own frame rate falls by roughly 30%. The floor is in the optics. So time never sped up. The cake of life keeps adding slices that look smaller against all the ones before. The camera films slower. The metabolic metronome drags. The dopamine slope flattens. The sub-events stop being filed. The prior smooths the rest away. The clock outside hasn't moved. The clock inside has been re-encoded. And the cruelest part of the math is that it's partly reversible, not the biology, the encoding. New things written down. The world is the same speed. You are just sampling less of it. Claymind may have overthought this one, but if it made you think, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.